What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where Mike, what do we do?
We process blue for you.
That's right. He's Mike K. I'm Alex Zetlow, and we are Carolina Panthers beat writers for the Charlotte Observer. We got a great show for you today. We'll talk about this Panthers win, this monumental win over the Bucks, as this yo-yo of a season continues. We'll talk about the culture Dave Canales has established in his second year in Carolina. We'll look ahead to Seattle and decide how much stock we should put into that game and much more. But first things first, Mike, I got to ask this. Is there anything more sustainable in this helter-skelter season than the ongoing bit you have with backup center Nick Samak? Because for my money, there isn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Not a lot of competition there. Sometimes you get kind of bored in the press box and you're looking at stats or you're putting two and two together and you realize, hey, since this guy's played, they've won all these games, they've lost all these games, they haven't done this or whatever. Sometimes you try to find some positives and humor, and I think Nick Samak, who is a guy who is very aware of the bit, and a lot of people are around the organization, I think it's something just to be funny with, and I like bits only get old because they're good, and to me at least, or at least to like the hundred or so people that follow it, they enjoy it too. So why not put a smile on somebody's face if the Panthers aren't winning, or it's been a funny day. So
Wait, so Mike, just real quick for the listener who might not be initiated to this whole thing. So what's Nick Samak's record when he's on the active roster for the Panthers right now?
when he's on the active roster, I believe he's 6-3, but since he made his debut in week 5, they are 7-4. Prior to that, they lost 30 of their previous 38 games. So 8-30 versus 7-4. Nick Samak clearly is a key contributor. I mean, he's only on field goal team, but when he plays more than 3 snaps, I think there's something like 7-1. So
I mean, the more you drill down into this bit, the more real it is. The more we have to pay attention to it. Honestly, one thing that a lot of Panthers fans paid attention to this past weekend was the 23-20 victory that the Panthers put together against the Tampa Bay Bucks in front of 73,000 people in Bank of America Stadium. Those fans saw moments of Bryce Young magic. They got a great performance from Derek Brown and this offensive line. Derek Brown, by the way, 5 tackles, 1 sack. He's now just one of 4 defensive linemen who have 300 career tackles in Panthers franchise history. Got that confirmed by a team spokesperson during the game. The others are Charles Johnson, Mike Rucker, and Hall of Famer Julius Peppers. So Derek Brown finds himself in some pretty cool company there. The Panthers also saw a Teteroa McMillan touchdown. JT Sanders got a touchdown. Ryan Fitzgerald kicked another game-winning kick, and that was followed up with a Lathan Ransom game-sealing interception with less than a minute left on Baker Mayfield. Mike, where do you want to start when discussing this win? I'll just pass the ball to you. Where do you want to begin?
Well, I think Bryce Young. I think for the last 3 weeks, he has played really competent football, if not better. Over the last 5 weeks, he's thrown for 10 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions. He's completing 66.7% of his passes during that span. I think this is the best stretch of his career. This is the best 5-game stretch of his career. At this point, I think it's a no-brainer to pick up his 5th-year option. I know Scott and I a couple of weeks ago talked about maybe holding off. I mean, I think it's a foregone conclusion. If you could tell me that I would get this type of production and this type of play for half the cost of Brock Purdy in 2 years, I think you'd be crazy not to say, yes, sign me up for that 1-year deal. Now, I'm not saying that he is the franchise quarterback for the first, the next 10 years,
Right.
but I think for the next 2, that is a very realistic way to go, and I think he's proving himself week after week. Now, he could have a clunker against the Seahawks. He could have a letdown against the Bucks. But I think when you look at this overall season, he's been good enough to help you contend for this division title, and he is only getting better. I don't think he is regressing. There have been moments of regression, but overall, I think he is growing, especially as a downfield thrower, as an improviser in the pocket. I think he has impressed me continuously over the last 5 weeks. And yes, you and I are objective observers. Stuff's going to change. One game he's going to be bad, we're going to criticize him. One game he's going to be good, we're going to praise him. It's non-linear. Like, that's like the thing. And I think if you take the totality of his season, and this isn't just based off this past game, I thought he played well against the Saints, and I said that last week. I thought the play calling kind of let him down that fourth quarter. He's been terrific against Atlanta. I thought he was terrific against the Rams. I thought he was terrific this past Sunday. I think the totality has been much better over the last 8 weeks than the first 8 weeks. And that's what you want to see as the season moves along. And they are at the top of the NFC South. I'd also say this rookie class, man, and I'm on to you, but like when you go down the list, like Mitchell Evans is catching 3 passes in key moments. Jimmy Horton's having a big run on the first drive that sets up a field goal. Nick Scorton is the smartest defensive rookie I've ever covered.
Guys, if I could just interject while Mike talks about Nick Scorton for a second. I know that you probably read his stuff and they're like, okay, and read his newsletter and like, oh yeah, Mike's a big fan of Nick Scorton. Try sitting next to him in the press box. I think Mike just like looks at Nick Scorton every defensive play and just sees what this rookie's going to do. And more often than not, Nick does something great. But go on, Mike. This is like, I just wanted to clarify that this is like some authentic praise, and you like watch pretty much everything this rookie does.
Yeah, I think he can be very special. He's not only a really good run defender, he's got high upside as a pass rusher, but most importantly, he is so intelligent. Like, you see, he told us when we interviewed him after his selection that you're going to see him thinking on the field. And there was a screenplay that he blew up, and you could see him kind of doing the math in his head from the press box, which I think is a really cool moment for him. And then we talked to him after the game, and he was taking us through his process. Like, this kid is saying stuff that you wouldn't hear from like a 6-year vet. I think he's just a really impressive young man. He's just turned 21 in August. I mean, his upside's huge. And then you can't like ignore Lathan Ransom making that huge interception. You have to feel good for the guy after what happened last week. One play doesn't make an entire game. And I mean, his interception didn't make the entire game. That could have been, a ball thrown away. But, I think the way that he battled back, he's been a key contributor on defense throughout the year. And then obviously Tetairoa McMillan should be the offensive rookie of the year. I just don't understand how you could. I mean, he's tops in the league amongst rookies in receiving yards and touchdowns. He's number 2 in receptions. Like, he's just terrific. And I'm going to let you just shower some praise on the rookie class, because I could go on and on. But they needed 10 to 12 cost-effective contracts for guys who could just make plays and plug holes in this depth chart because of how terrible they've been at drafting over the previous years. And my hat's off. Whoa, not the best look for your boy on YouTube.
It's okay. You ain't put gel in it today. You ain't put gel in
it. But no, I kind of marvel at the development of these guys and how they're playing. And as I wrote earlier on Monday, they're not just the future; they're the present, and they wouldn't be on this run if they weren't as good as they are.
So, Mike, I actually wanted to ask you about the offensive rookie of the year selection, and maybe dip our toes a little bit in the Pro Bowl discussion, but let's focus mostly on Tetairoa McMillan for a second. So, how do you say this? So we asked Dave about this Monday, and we essentially asked him, or I think you were the person who asked him, and he essentially said, end of year awards are cool. We celebrate them because they're cool moments and they should be celebrated. However, the way to get individual awards is having good team success. And that seems really obvious. But when Panthers fans 2 years ago were like, hey, Adam Thielen had this resurgent year, over 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards, on an offense that was completely bereft of life. Why isn't he making the Pro Bowl? Or the year prior when Chuba Hubbard had a really good year, but still the Panthers were 5-12 or whatever. Like, team success causes this individual success. And the Panthers playing better has risen Teteroa McMillan's ceiling on this whole thing. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're Emeka Egbuka, you got Baker Mayfield, who was playing like an MVP at quarterback at the beginning of the season. So, and I think those are really the two guys in contention, right? I don't really think.
Well, Trayvon Henderson from
Yeah,
Patriots has had
yeah,
a really good year.
but you have Drake May, who's like literally in the MVP discussion right now, handing him the ball off and like making that offense so much more dynamic. So, I don't know, man. I will say that T-Mac hasn't been the 50-50 ball like magician that we thought he might have been coming into the year. We thought that like Bryce could kind of just float it up to him, and he's kind of had trouble finding that. He goes up with one hand a lot, which is something that we've taken notice of in the press box. But I think in counteracting that, his route running is a lot better. He's more open and getting separation much better than people I think expected him to. So, but that's the nitty gritty stuff. I know that voters of the Offensive Rookie of the Year are looking at stats and they're looking at team success. And I think when you put those two things together and you kind of factor in the variable of Bryce Young has been as inconsistent as this whole team, I don't really see how it can go elsewhere. But I mean, is that kind of the argument you would make, or would you add any addendums to that?
Well, I think when you look at what's around him, I think if you have a lot of criticisms of Dave Canales' play calling, if you have a lot of criticisms of Xavier Legette, if you have a lot of criticisms of Bryce Young, well, look at how productive this guy has been with all three of those guys being variables around him. And to me, he's exceeded my expectations. I don't remember what my prediction was before the season. I thought it was like 800 receiving yards and like 6 touchdowns. Well, he's exceeded both those. And so it would be hypocritical for me to not rave about him. He's just been terrific. And I think, look, you and I have been wrong about a lot of things. We've also been right about a lot of things. I was wrong about the 8th overall pick with T-Mac. Like I liked the pick. I didn't love it. But you can't, as somebody who watches this team every week, objective or not, you can't not love what this guy does on the field. And I think he's going to grow. I think they're probably going to have him do a little bit more weight training to maybe where he's a little bit more physical. Obviously, he'll develop as a wide receiver with his coaching and all that stuff. But I think, I just don't know how you could have had a better outcome than what McMillan is doing right now. And with no quarterback really running away with the league, it feels like it's down to Henderson, Ibuka, and him. And I think McMillan, even like if you want to do it based off numbers, he's got better numbers than both of them. If you want to do it against the eye test, to me, McMillan's been the offense beyond like the running game, which has been kind of stop and start the last 8 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring one of us brought up 2023. Actually, I think I did when we were talking about Adam Thielen and all this. And I think back to that season in many ways, and how that impacts this season, because it was Bryce Young's rookie year, obviously, but it was also just like this new era of Panthers football paved the way for the Panthers having to go out and get a young coach, in a first-time head coach in Dave Canales in 2024. Mike, you have written a lot on CharlotteObserver.com and in your newsletters about the culture that Dave Canales has instilled. The one word that we've heard more than any other word this year has been the word finish. And as a result, the team is pretty spectacular in one-score games. They're 7-2 in games decided by 7 points or less. Is finish what you are referring to when you talk about the culture Dave Canales is instilling, or is it more than that?
I think it's a lot of things. I think this team plays its ass off for this guy. Like, remove play calling, remove execution. These guys play hard every single Sunday. Now they might, look like clown shoes at times or, whatever, but like they play hard. You can never question the effort. And my understanding is while Dave is all sunshine and gumdrops and rainbows in press conferences, he is an extremely accountable leader. He takes accountability for himself and he holds other people accountable, whether it's the staff or players. I don't get the vibe that there is any sort of resentment towards him within the locker room, which is huge because he's been moving guys around. Obviously, Bryce got benched a couple of years ago or last year. Chuba Hubbard lost his starting job. Austin Corbett lost his starting job for a moment, is now starting out of necessity. These guys have really bought in. There's like this universal language amongst them. Yes, you bring up finish. It's important to have those keywords. What I like is I don't see all these stupid signs around that are like finish or seize the day or any of that stupid crap. These are adults. I think Dave is really good at reaching these young guys. I think that's part of the reason why the young guys are developing so well. But I also think he's really good about messaging with the older dudes. I think he was extremely respectful of Andy Dalton last year when it was clear that he was not playing well and they needed another solution. I thought he handled Bryce's benching pretty well. Like if you asked around, there wasn't a lot of barbs being thrown. I think he did a really good job with Xavier Legette when he was facing adversity. Chuba Hubbard, Rico Dow. Rico Dow essentially called out the play calling. Next week it was fixed. I've seen Dave take accountability for when somebody else has a good idea. He strikes me as a guy who wants feedback and constructive criticism. And I think like does he get stubborn sometimes in games based on the results, based on what we see? Yeah, probably. But I think this dude is a leader of men. Like he really is. Like I think he is a guy who is a clear culture setter. I've covered culture setters who are extremely successful in Nick Sirianni. I've covered culture setters who are not in Gus Bradley. I've had hard-nosed coaches like Doug Marrone. I've seen guys who were considered offensive wizards like Doug Peterson. Like I've covered pretty much, Steve Wilkes, a defensive head. Like I've covered it pretty much like every variety, I think, like, or the general label. And if you're going to be a culture setter, you really better have success. And if you don't have early success, like runaway success, like Kevin O'Connell did and Brian Dable did, you better be able to message properly. And I think Dave Canales, for, all of his quirks, has really gotten a lot of buy-in from this team, especially the younger guys and then the older guys. And then the rest of the guys will just drop off. We rarely hear him pass the buck on criticism. I think he's extremely accountable. And I think if you were a Panthers fan and you hear a lot of the same old rhetoric over and over again, it's working. And so I think, again, there is a lot that I can criticize and that we have criticized. But I think from a culture standpoint, he has knocked it out of the park. Like the culture and the weight of the locker room and the atmosphere is completely different than it was 2 years ago. Like not even close. And it's not just because of the winning. Like we've seen them in the first half of the season be a struggling team and they still bought into that mindset. There are guys on this team that believe this is a playoff team, not because they're arrogant, not because they were told so, but because they have a belief that as a group, they can overcome adversity and triumph when they need to. And I think that belief is fostered by the way they're spoken to in meeting rooms and by their coaches.
Yeah. What's your beef with Carpe Diem, bro?
I just think like this isn't like a psychiatrist's office. Like you don't need that. Like if you're a professional athlete, you don't need that type of stuff. Like that's for, don't get me wrong. Guys go to Bible study, guys have rah-rah speeches, do all that stuff. That's terrific. But I think most guys are either visual or audible learners. So you want to hear those words said, or you want to um, you know, see the proof in the pudding, so to speak. And so I think like, you know, words have meaning, but they should also carry weight in how they're executed. You
Yep.
know,
No.
just writing "seize the day." Cool, cool, bud. Like, you know,
I'm just kidding. No, I thought that was I thought I believe and think and agree with everything that you just said when it comes to Canales' culture. I think he also has surrounded himself with players and coaches who also believe in what he believes in, coming from the Pete Carroll trees. David Moore is someone who he's been with for forever, and even though he's been absent with injury, he's really kept that receiving room together, even though that receiving room has taken a lot of lumps this year. Let's talk about week 17, shall we? And we're going to very briefly talk about the Seattle Seahawks game, yes. But I think the bulk of this discussion will be surrounding the question, how much water should we put into this game? Um, so let's talk about that. If you're like me, you might be a bit confused by the divisional tiebreakers going into the final 2 weeks of the season. So let's just break it down for you right here. The Panthers can make the playoffs in two different ways, technically. They can either, one, beat the Seahawks and watch the Bucs lose to the Dolphins in week 17, or they can beat the Bucs in week 18. So those are the two ways. To come to this conclusion, you have to look at the NFL divisional tiebreakers. They go like this. If two teams have the same divisional record, or excuse me, the same overall record, the first tiebreaker is their head-to-head matchups. Well, if the Bucs end up winning week 18, the Panthers and the Bucs will split. Okay, so moving on to the next tiebreaker. The next tiebreaker is best divisional record. Well, if the Bucs win week 18, the Panthers and the Bucs will have the same divisional record. So you have to go to the third tiebreaker, which is this thing called, quote, common games, which is essentially the better record against teams both the Bucs and the Panthers have played this year. By the end of the season, the Panthers and the Bucs will have played 12 common games. The Falcons twice, the Saints twice, each other twice, the Jets once, the Seahawks once, the 49ers once, the Patriots once, the Bills once, the Rams once, the Cardinals once, and the Dolphins once. Now, the Panthers have the Seattle game to go, so that means they have 11 games, common games, but so far the Panthers are 5-6 in those common games. The Bucs have the Dolphins game to go, and they are 6-5. So that is all to say, if both teams lose or win week 17, so if there are two Bucs, if the Bucs and the Panthers both lose week 17, or the Bucs and the Panthers both win week 17, the Bucs have the edge in the common game tiebreaker. So I say all that to say, it's essentially going to be a playoff game week 18. That's how it feels like. Of course, the unpredictable can happen in week 17, where the Panthers somehow beat the Seahawks and the Bucs somehow lose to the Dolphins. But it just feels like we are headed toward an early playoff game in week 18. Mike, is that fair to say, or am I kind of jumping the gun here?
yeah, Seattle is kind of like a weird insurance policy because in theory, you could win the division and you don't want to come out flat and lose. And then not only do you possibly cough up an opportunity to end this division race early, but you head into week 18 with less momentum and question marks, right? And so I think like the way to look at this game is the way I would sell this game. If you were going to say championship opportunity, like Dave Canales, I would say, hey, I know we can't control this, but if the Eagles lose two games and we win out, we'll get the 3 seed. And so there is something to play for. There is something to be established here. So whether the Dolphins beat the Bucs or not, we're still trying to control our destiny and potentially get the 3 seed and give us some sort of leg up in that fight. I do think Canales will say this is just another game. He strikes me as a guy who is pretty emotionally intelligent, and I think he's gonna have the conversation with himself that, you know what, he's gonna say to himself, I've come a long way. This is an opportunity to show, I never got to call plays in Seattle. This is what I'm made of. He's also going up against a coach that was hired the same year as him and is a defensive mind. So there's that. Like, there's a lot of dynamics here. Now, that said, they lose, doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like, if you're playing the odds, it doesn't matter. That said, that should never be a mindset when you're in the middle of a playoff push. You should look at this as, like, here's another playoff game. Until you've clinched the division, I don't think you should take your foot off the gas. And they have to kind of get over this whole win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Because yes, does that set them up to make the playoffs? Sure. It also sets them up for a big disappointment at home in the first round if they're following that trajectory. Now, if you would say, like, they're playing with house money by then, so it doesn't really matter. Well, to be honest with you, they're playing with house money right now. In my opinion, they've greatly overachieved and they've exceeded their timeline, their trajectory. Right, you had them at 8-9. I had them at 7-10. When they left free agency, we had opposite predictions. And after watching training camp, you and I kind of switched. I mean, if they finish 9-8, like, first division title since 2015, first playoff run since 2017.
First winning season since 2017.
Yeah, it'd be huge. And I think the buy-in of this fan base, I didn't really feel it a lot after the Rams win. I certainly didn't feel it after the Saints loss. Yesterday was pretty special. I think, like, it was the most noise that I had heard in that stadium probably since Wilkes had them kind of competing at the end of the season in 2022. There were some other games, like the first win of the Reich era against I think it was the Texans game with the walk-off field goal with Eddie. Like, that was pretty loud too. But I think fans are really buying in. And if you were a fan, what game would you rather be at than that one? But I would say this, if you're a fan, don't take your foot off the gas either. Seattle, it's the best of both worlds. Either you see them upset another 10-plus win team who's really trying to win and really establish themselves in the NFC West, or they lose and hopefully it's close and you see something good and maybe they're playing the Seahawks again in a few weeks and this is a good scouting opportunity. So, yeah, I don't think this game means a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it could mean a lot for prep and for momentum and stuff like that that's not in the standings.
Yeah. I love what you said about potentially setting themselves up for a better playoff spot with the Eagles, or swapping spots with the Eagles as opposed to being that 4 seed, because that's so real, and that's just a really healthy way to look at it. We talked to Dave Canales earlier on Monday, and Scott Fowler, our columnist, asked him, are you going to be checking the Bucs score during the game? And he said no, which is kind of what we expected. If the Panthers are down by 3 touchdowns late in the game and it doesn't look like there's any chance of coming back, will you pull your starters? Dave said, I don't anticipate doing that. This really does. This is a cliche that maddens us, I imagine, or at least it at times maddens me. But the one game at a time thing is like authentic to Dave Canales. And it's kind of part of the culture, like what you were saying earlier. That's just like who he is. That's what he does. And I don't imagine
consistent. You have to be consistent. The second your words get switched up or you change your character up a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's it. And sorry to cut you off, but here's the thing. Had they beat the Saints and then had they won this week, it's done, right?
Yeah.
You need to keep that angst up. Because if you lose to the Seahawks and they show, like, the strategy to beat you, similar to the way the Saints have, like, you might not come back from the next one. This game was close. This wasn't like they won a blowout. So you want to keep building up the assurance. You want to keep building up the belief. You want to keep building up hey, every week's a playoff game. That should be your mindset. Had they clinched this week, then they would have earned the artificial bye week. They did not earn that. And so it's about keeping that motor going, and it's about keeping the prevailing thought of it's us against the world. Nobody believes in us. Let's ruin somebody's day. Like that should be the belief. Let's ruin someone's day, and hopefully not somebody wearing process blue.
Yeah.
For you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm giving like a rah-rah speech and I'm Dave Canales, and I think this is true to his character, I'm saying if it's about us, let's continue to do what we do, as opposed to taking taking the easy way out. That doesn't seem like Dave Canales' type of preaching.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more once again. Should we, I mean, like, we just went on this long thing about how this game still matters. But in full disclosure, like, all I really got here in my notes for when talking about the Seattle Seahawks is Sam Darnold. And that's just because he used to play for the Panthers, and this could be like sort of a redemptive moment against the Seahawks. Obviously, I know that they're competing for like a top spot in the NFC. They have clinched their way into the playoffs. They want to find a way to better position themselves in the playoffs. Do you have any interesting facts or any interesting anything that can enlighten me about the Seahawks team?
They're really good defensively. Raheed Shaheed, who they got from the Saints at the trade deadline, is so dynamic as a returner. But he's also like a burner too. And the one thing that I think Mike Jackson and JC Horn struggle against is like full tilt speed. Like he's a mile a second, like it feels like. Jackson, I can't even pronounce his name. Their number one wide receiver, he's phenomenal. He's among the league leaders in like basically every receiving category. Kenneth Walker, their running back, is just like an absolute dog. He's just, I mean, they are better at a lot of spots on offense. Defensively, McDonald, their head coach, is phenomenal, and he's got some guys who are playing over their talent level. I mean, like Josh Jobe at corner. I mean, they've got Devin Witherspoon. They're a stacked group. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to the tape this week on them because we're recording this on a Monday. Yes, part of the reason why we're not talking about the Pro Bowl, by the way. But in games that I've watched just live, it's just like the energy, and they're very much like the Panthers. They play to the whistle. They might not always have the best technique, but they are ballers, and they are going to show you that they are ballers, and they're going to impose their will. The game against the Rams was the best game I've watched all season. Like
that was so fun. Oh my God.
I have not had that much fun watching a game on my couch in a very long time. The stakes are there. This NFC West is just terrific. They're going to have 3 teams in the race, and the Seahawks might be the best one of the group.
Okay. So do you have a prediction, or do you have?
I just feel like this is pointless, right?
Yeah, I know.
I think I'm on like a 4-game losing streak. Pretty like this is like, because of the weight of this game, and because I think the Seahawks are probably going to want it more, and because of the back and forth, whatever, I'll go Seahawks 23, Panthers 21, whatever. I just like, who cares? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to be wrong. Just go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was so funny. I got a couple of emails from readers, and I predicted the Panthers to win this past weekend, while my colleagues Mike and Scott did not. And one of my rationale, or like in my rationale for why I picked it, I said I'm going against conventional wisdom, but conventional wisdom has never applied to these Panthers. And I got a couple emails being like, don't worry about conventional wisdom, Alex. Just, you gotta. I can't even remember what he said, but it was just like, wow, this is what it feels like to actually predict properly this team, because dude, we have been on the opposite wavelength. long story short, I too am taking the Seahawks to win. Let's call it 31-21. For similar reasons. This game means a lot to the Seahawks. I think despite Dave Canales' best efforts, this locker room will be looking around the league. And if the game does get out of hand, I don't see like a massive comeback because, they got a lot to play for in week 18. All right, Mike, before we get out of here, anything else that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we are coming up with the third annual Processing Blue Awards. It's where I go around the locker room and I ask guys anonymously who is your offensive MVP, your defensive MVP, and your special teams MVP. Last year, I believe we had over 60 voters. The only rules are you can't vote for yourself, and you have had to have been on the team for at least the team or the practice squad for at least 4 weeks. So you had some sort of perspective on everything. It's been interesting. Last year, Chuba Hubbard won offensive MVP. Bryce Young was the runner-up. J.C. Horn won defensive MVP. Josie Jewell was the runner-up. And then special teams, I believe it was Felipe Franks and I don't remember who his runner-up was.
Yeah, but it was Felipe.
Yeah, it was Felipe. You and I and Scott will all vote on our guys too, but this is really like kind of a fun thing, especially with them now, actually having a somewhat successful season. I'm interested to see the feedback, but Bryce Young last year went from receiving no votes as a rookie to being the second place voter or nominee. I'm interested to see if he kind of takes the crown this year. Defensively, I'm interested to see it's either going to be JC or Derek Brown. It would be my guess, right? Like 2 Pro Bowl talents battling it out. Special teams, as always, there's a lot of candidates. Thomas Incoom, Caleb Evans, Bryson Tremaine, Ryan Fitzgerald,
Right.
Sam Martin, America's long snapper, JJ Jansen. So there's a lot. I'm interested to see how that kind of all plays out. Offensively, though, is it going to be Bryce Young? Is it going to be Rico Dowdle? Is it going to be Tetairoa McMillan? Is it going to be Damian Lewis? Is it going to be? No, that's probably everybody. But I'm intrigued to see what happens. It's one of my favorite stories that I do all year. I think it gives an opportunity for guys to kind of give their insight and be part of the story. And I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Make sure you subscribe to the Charlotte Observer. Check it out. Also, remember to sign up for the Axis Panthers newsletter. I'll have some extra stuff in there from the awards, and I'm kind of playing with the idea of doing a newsletter exclusive category. So, and you can put this in the comments. Should it be most improved player, where guys from last season only get to vote for somebody from that group? Or do we do something like Vibes Guy of the Year? I'm going to let you guys vote. You put them in the comments section on YouTube or send us emails. Well, mostly send Alex emails, and we'll go from there. Anyway, Alex, I think that's a good place to wrap. Oh, wait. One more.
Okay.
We've got to talk about 2 of our MVPs. Our producer, Zach Dennis, and our other producer, Emily. I am blanking on your last name, but
Emily Broyles.
Emily Broyles. Go App State. They're terrific. We are thankful for them. We're going to keep going even through the season and through the playoffs. I'm very excited about what the future holds for the Processing Blue podcast. Plus, we're going to have some guests in the offseason, so make sure you check that out. Alex shouldn't have given me that big of a runway. Go for it, Alex.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike K. and myself and our wonderful producers, Zach Dennis and Emily Broyles. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.